Welcome, assassins and adrenaline junkies, to Recap World. If you have ever wondered how one puppy could kick off a war against the entire global underworld, you've come to the right place. We are diving deep into the kinetic, high-stakes plot of the entire John Wick franchise. Strap in, because the plot moves fast, and the consequences are immediate. Our story begins in the silence following a storm. Legendary assassin John Wick, the man known as Baba Yaga, has spent 5 years in retirement, trading bullets for a quiet, domestic bliss with his wife, Helen. He achieved this peace by completing an impossible task, a favor secured by a blood marker from the powerful crime boss, Santino D'Antonio. But now, Helen has died from a terminal illness, and John is left heartbroken. Her final, perfect gift arrives shortly after the funeral, a small beagle puppy named Daisy. Daisy is John's last connection to his civilian life, a lifeline gifted by his late wife. John's brief period of mourning is violently shattered. While refueling his prized 1969 Ford Mustang, he crosses paths with a trio of arrogant Russian mobsters. Their leader, Iosif Tarasov, the unwitting son of powerful crime lord Viggo Tarasov, demands to buy the car. John refuses. That same night, Iosif and his thugs break into John's home. They savagely attack John, steal his beloved Mustang, and, critically, they murder Daisy. This act of ignorant, entitled disrespect becomes the catalyst for the entire saga. The next morning, the retired civilian life is gone. John Wick digs up a secret cache beneath his concrete floor, retrieving gold coins and weapons. He is back, and he is coming for Iosif. Viggo Tarasov receives the news and instantly realizes the monumental error his son has made. Viggo confirms John Wick is not just an assassin, he is the man known as the Boogeyman. Viggo attempts to placate John with ransoms and cleanup crews. John refuses all offers. The war is now personal, fueled by vengeance for his dog and his car. As the conflict escalates, we are introduced to the core structure of the global underworld. John checks into the Continental Hotel in New York, a neutral territory managed by the calm and influential Winston. Here, business cannot be conducted. No bloodshed is allowed on company grounds. Viggo places a multi-million-dollar bounty on John, drawing out old friends and enemies. Marquis, an assassin and old colleague, initially accepts the contract but secretly helps John throughout the film. John fights his way through Viggo's operations, culminating in a spectacular confrontation at a Red Circle nightclub. John captures Iosif, using him as leverage to draw Viggo out. Viggo attempts to betray John during the exchange, prompting a high-speed chase. Viggo ultimately kills Marquis for aiding John. In the finale, John confronts Viggo on the Manhattan Pier. John manages to defeat and fatally wound Viggo. His revenge is secured. By forcing the entire infrastructure of Viggo's organization to pay for the actions of Iosif, John demonstrates that the rules of consequence will always prevail. John rescues a new pit bull puppy from a local shelter, signaling a new, tenuous beginning, though the peace he sought is already shattered. The immediate consequences of John's return begin as he retrieves his stolen Mustang. The car is salvaged, but the real trouble has already arrived. Santino D'Antonio, the Italian crime boss who helped John achieve his retirement, appears at John's house demanding payment of the blood marker. This marker represents a blood oath, a promise sealed by Santino risking his life to help John complete that impossible task years earlier. John initially refuses to acknowledge the debt, arguing he is retired. Santino retaliates by using explosives to destroy John's home, fully shattering the last remnant of John's life with Helen. John travels to the New York Continental to seek advice from Winston. Winston sternly reminds John that the rules of the underworld are absolute. A marker must be honored, or John will be excommunicado, losing all services, protection, and credibility. John, left with no choice, agrees to honor the debt. He travels to Rome to meet Santino, who tasks John with a monumental favor: assassinate his sister, Ana D'Antonio, who currently holds a seat on the high table. Santino seeks to claim her position, and only her death will secure his ascension. John infiltrates Gianna's sanctuary. Gianna chooses to take her own life rather than let John claim the kill, forcing John to execute her to fulfill the literal terms of the marker. John escapes, facing Gianna's loyal bodyguard, Caine, resulting in a tense, non-lethal duel and a shared trip back to the New York Continental. Despite John fulfilling the obligation, Santino places an immediate open contract for $7 million on John's head, hoping to tie up the loose end and prevent John from revealing Santino's political plot to the high table. This demonstrates the marker system is easily weaponized and then discarded for pure political gain. John is hunted throughout the streets of New York by countless assassins seeking the lucrative bounty. He manages to corner Santino, who foolishly believes he is untouchable while sheltering on Continental ground. John finds Santino in the dining lounge. Winston attempts a final, desperate warning, reminding John that killing anyone on Continental territory is strictly forbidden, a direct violation of the sacred rule. John executes Santino, declaring, "Consider that a professional courtesy." Winston is left with no choice. He declares John Wick excommunicado, revoking all membership, services, and protection. He tells John, "Your life is now forfeit." However, out of respect and friendship, Winston delays the onset of the worldwide excommunicado and the massive bounty for 1 hour. This gives John a single hour's head start before the contract becomes active. John Wick walks into Central Park, his bounty active, the underworld alerted, and his only hope a quickly ticking clock. By killing Santino on Continental grounds, John elevates himself from a personal threat to an existential one for the entire system, proving that the High Table's rules are paramount. John's 1-hour grace period quickly expires, and the bounty escalated by the High Table officially goes live, now standing at $14 million. Every assassin in New York immediately mobilizes to claim the reward. John fights through the city, attempting to make contact with allies for safe passage out of the United States. He first seeks aid from the director, the head of the Ruska Roma crime syndicate, who trained him as a child. John uses his crucifix, a physical reminder of their past bond, as his ticket. The director provides John with medical assistance and supplies, violating the High Table's new order, knowing she will face consequences. The High Table sends the adjudicator, a powerful, detached enforcer, to punish those who help John. The adjudicator targets Winston, demanding he step down from managing the Continental, and the Bowery King demanding his death for providing John assistance. The adjudicator meets with the director, declaring her allegiance and Operation Forfeit. Both Winston and the Bowery King refuse the severe terms. John flees to Morocco to find the only man who can potentially lift his excommunicado, the Elder, the mysterious, powerful leader who controls the High Table itself. John nearly dies from dehydration on his journey, but is eventually found by the Elder's men. The Elder offers John a deal. John's life and status will be restored if he commits to serving the High Table once more, starting with the execution of Winston, who defied the adjudicator. As a sign of absolute commitment, John must sever his wedding ring finger. John agrees to the terms and returns to New York. The adjudicator revokes the Continental's neutral status and sends a large enforcement force, led by the lethal assassin Zero, to seize control. John arrives but refuses to kill Winston. Winston and John, along with concierge Charon and the Continental staff, decide to stand together and fight the High Table's army. An intense siege erupts within the Continental. John, Winston, and Charon manage to fight off waves of specialized assassins and High Table enforcers. John defeats Zero in a brutal final battle, leaving him mortally wounded but alive. On the roof, the adjudicator arrives back on the roof for a parley. Winston offers renewed allegiance to the High Table, but a price must be paid. Winston then shoots John, causing him to fall from the roof of the Continental skyscraper and plummet to the street below. The High Table accepts this display of fealty, and Winston is immediately reinstated as Continental manager. However, the shots were calculated. Winston did not shoot to kill, understanding that this public execution was necessary for his survival and the survival of the Continental. The severely injured John Wick is secretly rescued by the Bowery King's operatives and is brought to the King's secret underground bunker. Both men, grievously wounded and betrayed, solidify an alliance to fight the High Table together. This maneuver ensured that the infrastructure for rebellion remained intact. The narrative now enters the significant gap following John's traumatic fall from the Continental roof, approximately 2 months after Parabellum, but before the start of Chapter 4. The High Table, determined to assert its absolute power, has initiated a massive global crackdown, and the consequences for defiance are being felt throughout the underworld. This period introduces Eve Macaro, a highly trained ballerina assassin operating out of the Ruska Roma organization. Eve is driven by a singular, powerful motive: personal revenge for the brutal murder of her father, Javier. We learn that Eve is the daughter of 2 assassins, and her father was killed by a group known as the Cult. The cult's megalomaniacal leader, the Chancellor, had been responsible for orchestrating the killing of Eve's father, who helped her escape as a child. Eve, now a fully adorned Kikamora assassin, begins her mission of retribution, even though the director of the Ruska Roma forbids it due to a long-standing political pact between the Ruska Roma and the cult. Eve's mission to hunt down the Chancellor and his cult-like army of killers runs parallel to the greater war brewing against the High Table. Her initial success in killing a target provokes immediate retaliation from a cult member. During her desperate investigation, Eve seeks refuge at the New York Continental. Winston, now reinstated but operating under the High Table's watchful eye, advises her that her actions have earned her an immediate $5 million bounty. Crucially, Eve also crosses paths with John Wick himself. John is in a hidden location, in a state of initial recovery from his near-fatal injuries from the Continental roof. Recognizing Eve's unique skill and drive, John offers her essential counsel on how to navigate the overwhelming consequences of seeking revenge against such a formidable force. Eve uses this knowledge to successfully track and execute the Chancellor, securing her personal vengeance. Her actions, coupled with the Bowery King's regrouping, further confirms that the High Table's enforcement actions are only strengthening the resolve of independent underworld factions, widening the scope of the rebellion and setting the geopolitical stage for the large-scale conflict in Chapter 4. Some time passes, allowing John to fully recover and strategize with the Bowery King. The High Table, determined to crush the rebellion, appoints the ambitious and ruthless Marquis Vincent Bissett de Gramont as the new enforcement agent, granting him full authority to eliminate John Wick and assert absolute dominance. The Marquis begins by asserting his dominance, publicly executing John's friend Charon and destroying the New York Continental, stripping Winston of his managerial status and neutral ground. The Bowery King and Winston inform John of the one loophole that could grant him permanent freedom, challenging the Marquis to a duel under the High Table's ancient rules. If John wins, his excommunicado status is rescinded, and Winston is reinstated and the Continental rebuilt. The Marquis, eager for personal glory and the chance to be the man who kills Baba Yaga, accepts the challenge. To officially issue the challenge, John must rejoin his former family, the Ruska Roma. John travels to Berlin and assassinates the head of the German table, Killa Harkin, thus earning his family's readmittance. The Marquis attempts to sabotage John at every turn, continuously raising the bounty on John's head to record-breaking levels and forcing John's friend, the blind assassin Caine, to act as his proxy in the duel, threatening Caine's daughter if he refuses. The Marquis sets the duel for sunrise at Sacré-Cœur, Paris with pistols, with both John and Winston wagering their lives or status. John battles his way through assassins globally, including the Osaka Continental, to reach Paris in time for the duel. The night before the duel, the Marquis violates the spirit of the duel rules by increasing the bounty, showcasing his hubris. Joan survives a relentless ambush on the 22 steps leading to the cathedral, aided strategically by Caine and the tracker, barely making it to the summit as the sun rises. The duel commences, officiated by the Harbinger. The rules mandate that the distance begins at 30 paces, decreasing by 10 paces after each shot. John and Caine fire 4 rounds. In a clear display of prearranged calculation, Caine and John intentionally aim for non-vital areas, wounding each other in the exact spots John was instructed to be shot at for survival, but avoiding lethal damage. On the final round, John is wounded but fails to fire his shot. The Marquis, confident in John's defeat and driven by ego, demands the right to administer the final shot himself. Winston interrupts, pointing out the technicality. John did not fire his final round. The Marquis' fatal flaw, his hubris and adherence to the letter of the law, is exposed. John Wick raises his pistol and shoots the Marquis de Gramont directly in the head. The Marquis is dead. John Wick is declared free and his excommunicado status is removed. Winston is reinstated as manager of the New York Continental, and Caine is released from his debt to the High Table. John, fatally wounded and exhausted, walks down the basilica steps, thinking of Helen. He closes his eyes and finally finds the peace he fought 4 films to reclaim. John Wick is gone. The final scene shows Winston and the Bowery King standing over John's grave, engraved with the final word John wanted: loving husband. The war against the High Table is over, but it came at the ultimate, final cost. And that is the relentless chronological plot of the John Wick saga. It's a story built on escalating consequences where loyalty is a lethal weakness and the only way to beat the system is to master its rules. If you love this deep dive into the world's most dangerous hitman, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Recap World for more explosive action breakdowns. Tell us in the comments, which High Table rule would you be most afraid of breaking? We'll catch you in the next one.